Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Steven with Freeze Peach Gaming, and today I'm looking at this article by Breitbart. Trump appointed judge blasts DOJ for uneven treatment of January 6th rioters. So I will admit I am already in agreement just off of the headline here. I believe that they have been completely unfair to the January 6th almost entirely peaceful protesters. If I'm going to be using the same metrics that the left has been using for their protests, it was almost entirely peaceful. It wasn't even fiery, but mostly peaceful, just almost entirely peaceful. So let's get right into it. An important part of America's justice system was being threatened by unequal tactics weaponized by the Justice Department, a federal judge said Friday. U.S. District U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden, appointed by former President Donald Trump in 2017, stated a double standard was being used when it came to individuals facing rioting charges connected to the violence on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol, according to the Western Journal. The judge said the authorities were more lenient regarding charges against those connected with the riots that occurred after George Floyd's death. Yeah, absolutely. I 110% agree with that. You can see here they have a picture, people holding up the Black Lives Matter poster. And there's fire right there. There's always fire. How come every picture of one of these George Floyd riots, there's 100% of the time fire? Oh, and then you scroll down here, there's a picture of the January 6th almost entirely peaceful protest. The only smoke that is in this picture is from the tear gas canisters that the police were firing into the crowd. Everyone else is just waving flags and talking about how awesome America is. All right, back to the article. The U.S. Attorney's Office would have more credibility if it was even handed in its concern about riots and mobs in the city, McFadden commented during the sentencing hearing on January 6 rioter. He also mentioned that Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser wrote a letter last year to federal officials regarding the refusal to prosecute cases after the riots. Yeah, I bet she was upset about that. They came down and they were throwing Molotov cocktails. There was a video you saw of the guy who lit himself on fire with a Molotov cocktail. But no charges for those people. You gotta let them go. But if you went to January 6th and you peacefully walked into the building being escorted in, nope, straight to prison. We're going to hold you well beyond the amount of time that we're allowed to. We're going to forego your rights, and we are going to prosecute you to the highest extent. Sorry if the camera's getting shaky here. I got a kitty cat that thinks it's fun to rub her face on things. At the sentencing Friday, Judge McFadden reprimanded defendant Daniela Doyle, who pleaded guilty regarding a misdemeanor for unlawfully protesting at the Capitol building. Right? These people are getting hit with misdemeanor charges. They have been held in prison, not just jail, but in prisons. Some of them in solitary confinement on misdemeanor charges, when there were people out there committing felonies, looting and rioting and property destruction, and they got nothing. Slap on the wrist, sent back out. And it sets the tone for them that they are allowed to go out and riot and loot and murder. Out of all of the the pro mostly peaceful yet fiery protests that happened in 2020, 40, I believe it was upwards of 40 people died, including David Dorn, who got shot over a TV. But at January 6th, who died? Well, there were a couple of people who had heart attacks and stuff. They probably weren't prepared for the, intense situation that was going on there. There was the cop who died well afterwards of a stroke, not from getting hit in the head with a fire hydrant, which is a ridiculous thing. It was an extinguisher what they meant, but I remember hearing people say it was a fire hydrant. The only person who died was Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by a cop. All right, back to the article. You were acting like those looters and rioters who attacked our city last year, he said. No, they weren't. That is a lie. They're trying to create a false connection between what happened at January 6th, and we can see the pictures right here. Look at that. Let's see, where is this going on? This was in Minneapolis. Look at that. Entire building burning down. The guy's got his fist in the air. Versus this. People standing around. And you can watch videos of what happened at January 6th. People were just walking into the building, waving their flags. They're just standing around. There weren't people trying to burn down the Capitol. You participated in a shameful event, a national embarrassment. that, like last year's riots, made us feel less safe and less confident that our country could be governed by democratic values and not mob rule. Well, that right there is hypocrisy in itself, because A, we're not a democracy. I hate it when people say we're a democracy. We are a representative republic, and the reason why is because democracy is mob rule. We do not follow mob rule. We elect representatives, and we use some democratic values or democratic methods to get us there. However, we have the electoral college for the very reasons that we don't allow the mob to rule. In fact, I am a proponent of state electoral college. I believe that we need to break down where our delegates go based upon the districts that those delegates are representing. I think we should have state electoral college not just for federal elections, but also for state elections. Maybe I'll do another video on that one day, but if you want to see a good video on that, I will link Razorfist at the Rageaholic does a really good video on state electoral college. I'll put that in a link in the description below. Meanwhile, Joe Kent, a Republican congressional candidate, decried the erosion of January 6 protesters' rights during a speech at the Justice for January 6 rally in Washington, D.C. Good. We need people to stand up for these people. They absolutely have had their rights eroded. They're being held for far too long. Kent said Americans must fight to protect their fellow Americans' rights, noting that January 6 protesters were denied due to their process because of their involvement in the January 6 riots and protests. Don't even call it a riot. It is an almost entirely peaceful protest. Using their metrics, it is an almost entirely peaceful protest. And yes, I agree, we do need to protect our rights more than ever right now, because we have people out there wanting to take away the rights of others for safety. They're afraid of invisible things. I can't say what they are, but they're so afraid that they are willing, not even willing, they are wanting to completely withhold the rights ingrained to us by God and coded in the Constitution. They want to take these rights away from others so that they themselves can feel safe. He stated, this is Joe Kent, stated, "We believe in this country. We believe in this flag. We believe in everything that it stands for. And when there is an injustice done to our fellow citizens and their constitutional rights are taken, if we do not speak out against that, we are guilty of standing by and watching those rights erode." That is absolutely true. We have to stand up for the rights of others, even when we don't agree with what they are doing. This is why I am nearly a free speech absolutist. I stand by what the law does say you're not allowed to do. You know, threats of violence yeah, you can get charged for threats of violence. I don't stand against that. But at the same time, what happened to us? We can't, remember back in the day, you could just, tell people, I'm gonna kill you, and no one would freak out, because you didn't actually mean you were going to kill them. In fact, that was one of the major points in the movie 12 Angry Men. But make no mistake, what governments overseas are doing, they will do over here, and they have already started. That is true. They are absolutely trying to take away our rights. In fact, I was just seeing, I don't know the totality of the situation, but apparently Australia is going under military rule, and they're going to be forced to get the jab. It's banana republic stuff when political prisoners are arrested and denied due process, Kent concluded. So that's the whole article there. Yeah, I agree with everything they're saying there. It's absolutely for political reasons that the January 6th almost entirely peaceful protesters who are being held on misdemeanor charges, being kept within prisons, are absolutely having their rights violated. And especially at a time when we see a two-tiered justice system where as long as you are saying the right things and you think the way that the establishment wants you to think, if you are saying Black Lives Matter, if you are saying Antifa, if you are saying all of their cries, you can loot, you can murder, you can riot, you can destroy entire city blocks, you can destroy businesses, you can burn down cars, and you can't defend yourself if those people come after you. But if you don't think the way that the establishment wants you to think, you are public enemy number one, and they will come after you, and they will use the full force of the law against you. It's ridiculous. And these authoritarians out there, they're loving it. There's all these tankies and all these socialists out there. They absolutely love it. They are under the impression that they're going to be able to force their ideology and force their opinions into the government and then begin to take over piece by piece. I mean, look at all the people who were supporting Bernie Sanders. I mean, there were a good amount of people who supported Bernie Sanders for the things he actually said. But if you look at the people, like you follow what Project Veritas was doing and exposing his campaigners and the people who were working within his campaign, those people were absolute tankies. They were full-on jackboot socialists. They were so close to fascists that they couldn't even understand how close they were. The only difference being is a few ideologies here and there, that their enemy is a different enemy than those held by fascists. That's the only real difference between them. These people think that they're going to be able to infiltrate the government, and who knows, maybe they are. We see the two-tiered justice system starting. That's one of the early steps in creating an authoritarian rule. The main thing right now is don't give up your guns. Anytime they try to do any sort of gun buyback, if there's any sort of politician, and this includes the Republicans, like Dan Crenshaw, anyone who is out there supporting any type of legislation that will withhold your right to defend yourself and to keep and bear arms as is your Second Amendment right. And it's only second because free speech was first. That was the most important. How do we protect our free speech? Through the ability to protect ourselves, through the right to bear arms. So make sure that any politician you see wanting to take away your right to bear arms, like these Beto O'Rourke's and all those bastards, make sure that you do everything you can to speak out against them. Make sure that you tell your friends and family that these people are wrong, that they are authoritarian, and they are trying to set up a world where you will no longer have your rights. They're trying to make us into an Australia, where people are forced into their homes, where we see police going out and choke-slamming women because they aren't wearing their mask, because they're at a protest saying that the government is authoritarian. And what's the response? We're not authoritarian. Now get choke-slammed. The most important thing is to remember that you, the individual, are in control of this situation. You have to stand up for what is right. You have to stand up and say, this is wrong. These people are being treated unfairly. There is a two-tiered justice system. We allow the same behavior for one type of person based upon what their ideology is. It's not what they did, it's what they think. We are no longer judging people by their actions, but their words. And that is backwards. We should be judging people by their actions. The actions are identical. In fact, they're not even identical. They're significantly less. The actions of what happened at January 6th, significantly less than what we saw throughout all of 2020. Entire cities being destroyed, perfectly acceptable. Chaz, Chop, whatever the hell you want to call it. That, perfectly acceptable. No charges. Zero charges. What was it? 14 people got killed in Chaz? A kid got shot because he went joyriding, which should be acceptable if this has become an autonomous zone and there's no police and no law and no order. Why shouldn't a kid be allowed to go joyride and then get shot? That is what they want. They want people to do these things because the establishment thinks they're under their control. But when we do it, when we say, I don't like what's going on here, I want more transparency from our government, I think that they're trying to fortify the system. What do we get? We get thrown into prison. Unjustly. Unduly. We get held on misdemeanor charges for months. Months. We're 10 months out? Almost to the day. 2 more days and we'll be 10 months out from when this occurred. People are still being held, and not in jails, in prisons, for misdemeanor charges. But it comes down to you. You need to stand up and say, this is wrong. Well, if you liked this content, please leave me a comment down below telling me what you think and how awesome I am. Give me a like and a subscribe, and please share this out. That's one of the most important things that could help me out right now, and ringing that notification bell could let you know when things actually pop up here. I'm trying to get to be more regular with posting videos, and that'll actually notify you when it happens. Either way, have a wonderful day, and never be afraid to speak your mind.
Okay. How do you get a hippie pregnant? You come on her feet and let the flies do the rest. Oh, waka waka!